Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk to you about 8 tips for passing your driving test the first time. In this video, I'll be going over 8 simple tips that will help you pass your driving test on your first try. Now let's get right to it. Let's get right into the tips. Tip number 1 is work on your weak skills. Now, everybody has skills that they're better at and skills that they're weaker at. They have strong skills and weak skills. And those weak skills might be different from one driver to the next, meaning one person might not be good at parallel parking and the other person might be excellent at parallel parking, but they're not so good at reverse parking. Now, when you're doing your driving test, chances are your weak skills are what are going to hold you back. Your weak skills are going to cause you to lose those points and potentially fail that driving test. So by working on your weak skills, you are lowering the chances of them negatively affecting you on your test. Let's say you're not so good at parallel parking. Well, go ahead and parallel park 150 times over a weekend to practice. Just pick your weakest skills and go ahead and work on them. Tip number 2 is to perfect the key skills. Now, there are some key skills that you will be constantly using on the driving test. Things like lane changes, things like shifting if you're driving a manual car, using the clutch properly and smoothly if you're driving a manual car, braking smoothly and effectively, steering throughout a turn. These key skills are the ones that you're going to have to use many times throughout the driving test, and they're absolutely the key factors to you passing the driving test. And that's because if you have to do something many times on a test, like braking, chances are you're going to have to hit that brake pedal many times on a driving test. If you know how to do it well, it's going to allow you to have a much better chance at passing the test. If you're not good at it, then it's going to greatly reduce the chances of you passing and increase the chances of you failing. Tip number 3, expect the unexpected. Now, when you're preparing for a driving test, chances are you're going to prepare for the things that are most likely going to happen. And that's absolutely true. You should be doing that. But there are some things that might happen on that driving test that are unexpected. And those things might cause you to fail. Things like an emergency vehicle approaching from the right-hand side or from behind or whatever the case is. Things like an obstacle appearing on the road and you have to swerve around it or brake or come to an emergency stop. Things like the person in front of you absolutely slamming on their brakes. Things like the person in front of you rear-ending the person in front of them. All of those unexpected situations, I want you to expect them. And the best thing that you can do to expect them is to prepare yourself mentally and physically within the car for them. So just figure out, what would you do if this happened? And literally just put in all of those unexpected situations and you'll be ready for what to do if they happen. Tip number 4, get some sleep. I know that you're probably going to be nervous the day before the test. I know that you're going to want to stay up late and study, but what you need to do is get rid of all those nerves in advance. So like a couple days before, start relaxing yourself for the test. Carry that through until the actual test. And also get all of your studying and practicing done before the night before the test, meaning get it done at least the day before the test or the day of the test. Don't worry about staying up late and studying and practicing. Instead, opt to get some extra sleep, okay? You want to get a full night's sleep plus a little bit extra because you want your brain to be functioning at 100% efficiency during that driving test. Tip number 5, follow all traffic rules. When you break a traffic rule, when you break a traffic law, it's one of the worst things that you can do on a driving test. Follow the speed limits. Don't drive too fast, but also don't drive too slow. Come to a full stop whenever you get to a red light or a stop sign. Yield the right of way when you have to yield the right of way. Okay, there are basically any traffic rule that you see that exists where you live, you want to make sure that you follow all of those rules. And you can do that easily by building good habits. If you build good habits within the driving scenarios, then you'll be able to follow all the traffic rules without even thinking about following them. You'll just be following them because they're actual habits. Tip number 6, safety is your primary concern. The person beside you, the driving examiner, is going to be looking at your level of safety. Driving examiners want to give licenses and want to allow people to pass that are safe drivers, okay? So they want to make sure that you are a safe driver, because safety is the primary concern when you're on the road. Therefore, when you're taking the test, safety should be your primary concern. So always think with safety first. Always think about, is this the safest thing to do? Is this the best thing to do with regards to safety being my primary concern? Tip number 7, read the driver's handbook. Now, chances are there's going to be a local driver's handbook for where you live, for whatever place you're doing your driving test in. You want to read that handbook front to back many times. You want to study that handbook as if you're studying for an exam, because your driving test in reality is just an exam. And the more that you study, the better that you'll be with following those traffic rules and doing the right things in each situation. Now, if there by any chance is not a driver's handbook where you live, or if you don't have access to it, or if you don't have it and you're watching this the day before the test, then go online and look at some resources, or go to the library and look at some resources for driving theory, for driving tips, for driving instruction. I'm just telling you basically to study the idea of driving and the things that you should do when driving, okay? Now make sure to study general driving things that are included in the handbook or your other resources that you're reading, but also study the local specific rules and guidelines for wherever it is that you're taking the test. Last but not least, tip number 8 for this video is that more practice is better. You literally cannot practice enough, okay? I always recommend starting to practice for the driving test well before you actually are going to take the driving test, okay? That means that, like, if you know your driving test is in a month, start practicing as much as you can daily, if possible, from a month or even 2 months before the driving test, because that means that you'll be ready. The more, like, think about it. The reason that drivers get better as they've had their license for 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, generally speaking, drivers improve their driving skills is because they've just practiced more. You want to basically log more hours in the car driving, and more practice is better. The more practice that you can get under your belt before that test, the better off that you'll be with regards to your chances of passing on the first time. So in this video, I've given you 8 tips for passing your driving test on the first try, the first time, okay? These tips are designed to increase the likelihood and increase the chances of you passing that test and getting your license on your first try, the first time that you take the test. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. What are some other tips for passing your driving test on your first try? Let me know down below as a comment, and of course be sure to subscribe for more great car and driving videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.